Well, we've all seen the TV shows, the movies. You've seen the big mountain with the sign Hollywood. And with that comes a whole lot of thoughts. What do you think about Hollywood? Bright lights, Tinseltown, movies, the red carpet, all that kind of stuff. Well, our next guest has spent years researching Hollywood to the place that he actually wrote a book about it. And we're glad to have Rafael Rivera here with us. And he's sharing his book, Hollywood, with us, and good to have you, Ralph.
Thank you for inviting me.
Good. So as we talk about this here, we've got a very special look at Hollywood from your perspective. But before we get into the book, talk us about why Hollywood.
Well, I was originally, a CUNY student many years ago, and I was a finance major, but I was a musician at heart. So I always wanted to be in entertainment. So when I decided that I would go to Hollywood, I get to Hollywood and I found myself very lonely there. So I went ahead and started walking Hollywood Boulevard with all the stars. And I used to read as a kid, there was gold in them hills with the stars and all that stuff. So I started going into Hollywood Boulevard, and there's a lot of alleyways on the boulevard. And you go into the alleyways, and what you find is a lot of memorabilia shops. And every shop that I went to had a sign. It said, the Latino section. What is this? So I started looking into the Latino section, and I was amazed at the contributions and of the wonderful things that Latinos did during this silent era and onward. So I started collecting magazines and the articles and photographs from the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I then decided that I had all this material. So, and I did a little research, and I saw that a lot of the colleges and libraries and reference places had no information about Latinos in Hollywood. So that's when I started to go ahead and write. And what happened was that when I was a kid living in the South Bronx, I went to work at the various shops that were owned by the Jewish community. And so I went in there and I said, look, the neighborhood is changing. So what we need to do is we need to speak Spanish, right? So they said, okay, let's try it. So I put up a sign and it said, se habla español. So we put the sign up and the business just went crazy with additional new business from the Latino community.
Right.
So when I started now to find an idea for the title, Hollywood is a facade. There's a lot of phony things that happen there. So my idea was to put a facade of a bar, if you will, with the name Hollywood on it. And on the window, I call it Se Habla Español. So Hollywood Se Habla Español. And what it is, it's 100 years from 1908 to 2008 of contributions and information about, who we are as Latinos in Hollywood. And I began in the silent era, and then 100 years later is more like today.
Yes.
What
did you find to be the most intriguing in your research?
The most intriguing was the fact that a lot of stories are told. And as they say today, is fake news. But there's a lot of fake news in those days also. But I found the contributions that the Latinos made. For example, during the silent era, Latinos were at the top of the list in Hollywood. The biggest screenwriters were Latinos. And then what happened when sound comes into being, a lot of the Anglos the voices were not being heard properly. But the Latino voices, who spoke English obviously, were able to be recorded. So the Latinos, therefore, like in the earlier stages, goes from silent and then it goes into what's called the Latin lover image. And there's a Latin lover thing whereby a lot of the Anglo actors couldn't get jobs, so they changed their names from their name to a Spanish name so they can get jobs. So that was a wonderful era that happened. Then what happens is that Hollywood gets wise to the fact that, hey, Latinos go to the movies. So they go ahead and they produce in the 30s, over 120 films, all the studios, in Spanish so that they can export them to Latin America, into Spain and all the Spanish-speaking countries. Then in the 40s, it turns around. It becomes, the Latino becomes the greaser, becomes a bad guy, becomes a Mexican with the hat, who's always, killing people, etc. So the negative aspect comes in, okay? Then what happened is after that, I decided I wanted to find out more about who is the Cisco Kid, who is the Zorro. So I find out all the information, historical information about these two, which they were called superheroes, Latino superheroes, who were not, by the way, written by Latinos and were not played by Latinos for many, many years. So then we create a Hispanic Hollywood Hall of Fame, and then we write about what's happening today, and the fact is that Latinos are still today less than 3% of the roles in Hollywood that are up.
Yeah, and I want to tell people that you have an opportunity to get this book. If people want to get the book, how do they get it?
Well, on my website, it could be gotten. The book is being used by all the major universities, Stanford University, Texas A&M, Michigan State, because there's nothing out there. So all the reference and research libraries around the country and at major colleges and universities are acquiring the book. And the book is also available as a gift book, because it's a coffee table book, but yet it's been declared recently into what's called a rare art collectible book.
Wow. Well, we want to thank you so much for coming and sharing about the book. You can get an opportunity to get the book, and you know where you can get it. You saw the information at the bottom of your screen. Richard, thank you so much for coming and being with us.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for the great work that you've done.
Thank you.
In bringing this to. All righty, listen, taking a quick break. Got more for you, I should say. Stay with us coming up after the break. Going to try to help you get your finances right. If you need some help, our guys in the studio will be back in just a few.